Joseph Goebbels' final hours are one such choice, a human act that confirms a truth the world debated for decades. The Führer did not flee. Adolf Hitler died in his bunker on April 30, 1945. The proof lies in the man who would not live without him. By late April 1945, Berlin was a city of ruins and ghosts. Streets once throbbing with life were choked with debris. The sky glowed with distant fires. Soviet artillery redrew the map of the city every hour. Above ground, the Third Reich collapsed in a roar. Below, 30 feet under a shell-ravaged garden, lay a concrete labyrinth where history would quietly conclude. Joseph Goebbels moved in that labyrinth like a shadow that thought in sentences. He had the gift of words and the hunger of a convert. In Hitler he found the mirror he had long sought, someone who answered his need for purpose by giving him a cause vast enough to remake his life. "He has made me a new man," Goebbels wrote in his diary in the 1920s, and it was more than praise, it was a conversion. That allegiance hardened into something beyond politics, a fused identity, the man and his leader forming a single psychological unit. And in the bunker this fusion reached its terminus. Goebbels did not merely prefer Hitler. Hitler inhabited him. By early April, as Berlin fell, strategy had dissolved into resignation. Himmler and Göring maneuvered for survival. Goebbels did not. Where others sought exits, he sought meaning. He continued dictating bulletins and diary entries that sounded more like prayers than plans. They were invocations of destiny, duty, and acceptance. On April 22, 1945 he wrote, "The Führer has decided to remain in Berlin and fight to the end. We shall stand with him. The end is approaching fast, but I am calm and resolute." The bunker reduced Nazi grandeur to footsteps in narrow corridors, to despair, whispered orders and small gestures. In that compressed world, symbolism replaced power. He signed papers like benedictions and arranged his final words like a sermon. Eyewitnesses saw this calmness. Rockesmish, the communications operator, remembered. He did not bargain. He accepted. Juliyanto, Hitler's secretary, wrote of his pale face, his low voice, and the steadiness of a man who had already decided his fate. Goebbels' domestic life was the private reflection of his public faith. Magda Goebbels amplified her husband's devotion to Hitler. Photographs from happier years show Hitler seated among those children, smiling, almost paternal. What looked like warmth was worship translated into the language of family. Magda once said, "He represents everything pure and elevated in life. Our children belong to him as much as to us." When Hitler ended his life in the bunker, that symbolic world collapsed. The gunshot that Hitler inflicted on himself did not only end his life, it erased their center of gravity for the Goebbels family with horrific results. Magda moved through the bunker with eerie calm. She comforted the children, spoke of peace and sleep. Then morphine. Then cyanide. Each act deliberate, not panicked. Afterward, Joseph and Magda climbed the bunker stairs into the ruined garden. Their adjutant, Günther Schwagermann, followed at a distance. Magda took cyanide first. Joseph either followed with poison or was shot at his own request. Gunfire echoed in the courtyard, two sharp cracks, perhaps one and its echo. When Schwagermann returned with petrol, Joseph lay dead from a gunshot wound, Magda still beside him, the bitter scent of cyanide in the air. Their bodies were set alight, the flames briefly touching the broken walls of the Reich Chancellery. Juliyanto later recalled, "Magda was gentle, almost radiant. She said she was fulfilling the Führer's will, and that the children must be spared the shame of defeat." Why treat this sequence of choices as evidence? Because human action is often the most direct testimony to belief. Forensic fragments describe what was done, decisions and timing explain why. If Hitler had escaped, Goebbels, master of the regime's message, would have been its guardian. He had access, networks, and motive. Yet instead of preserving the myth, He destroyed everything that bound him to it. The simplest explanation is the truest one: Hitler was dead. Conspiracy thrives on gaps. But when a man close enough to know chooses death over secrecy, those gaps close. Major Hugh Trevor Roper, the first investigator immediately after the death of Hitler, wrote, "Goebbels' death was not imitation but completion. It was the psychological proof of Hitler's death. The likelihood of Goebbels killing his family, and himself if Hitler had escaped, is vanishingly small. The likelihood of him doing so after Hitler's suicide is high. In this case, human motive aligns perfectly with the historical record." Diaries, interrogations, and witness testimonies, Janne, Gunsche, Misch, all place Goebbels at the center of the final act, refusing escape. The Nuremberg documents and Soviet reports confirm the aftermath. Taken together, they form a coherent human narrative, a man whose existence depended on one leader, and who ceased to exist when that leader did. In her final letter, Magda wrote, "The world that will come after the Führer and National Socialism will not be worth living in, so we take the children with us." The moral horror of what occurred must not obscure its evidentiary power. The murder of children by their parents is an atrocity beyond words, yet it completes the ideological circle. The Goebbels children did not die incidentally. Their deaths were part of the terminal logic that consumed the regime. By late April, Berlin was sealed off. Escape required not just means but a willingness to abandon belief. Goebbels had both, yet used neither. Historian and editor Joachim Fest wrote, "Goebbels' death was ritual, not despair. He died to prove the end of what he believed in. In his mind, if Hitler lived, there was no need to die." The bunker compressed private and public choice into one space. In that confinement, decisions revealed values. Goebbels chose ideology and symbolic closure over his family's life and his own, and in doing so, he confirmed what history needed to know. When a person fuses identity with another, the loss of that other destroys the self. Goebbels had remade himself in Hitler's image. When that image died, only one act remained consistent with that identity: to follow. His final diary entry captured that fatal symmetry. The Führer is dead. The heart of Germany has ceased to beat. We shall not try to live without him. Goebbels' death, along with that of his family, in timing and logic, is human evidence that Hitler did not escape the grave on April 30, 1945. As Trevor Roper wrote, Goebbels' faith was his evidence. He died to bear witness the choice made beneath Berlin's burning sky was the answer. When the gunfire sounded, when the petrol burned, when the diaries closed, history's human witness had spoken. Joseph Goebbels died because his Führer died, and in doing so, he supplied the simplest, most devastating confirmation that Adolf Hitler had not escaped the grave on April 30, 1945. History isn't written only in documents, it's written in human choices. Do you doubt this analysis? Let us know in the comments box. And if this story helped you see that side of history differently, subscribe to this channel for more war and history analysis that looks beyond the battlefield. Thanks for stopping by.